meeting that will take place from 23rd to 27th of September 2024 at Sokoine University in Tanzania. We are having this second webinar to help us prepare for the upcoming in-person encounter training. And our program for today is also very short. We are building on from our first webinar, where we had introductory to GHG inventories, and then we had the GHG inventory process, and then also we had some introduction on the new requirements for reporting the national GHG inventories under the Paris Agreement, including specific highlights on the from the MPGs and also application of the flexibility provisions. So today's webinar will mainly be on institutional arrangements for the GHG inventories, national inventory systems, of course, following the MPGs, and sustainable systems for data collection. And then we shall also have another presentation providing some guidance on GHG inventory management process, including the work plan and management of the inventory cycle, management of QA/QC and documentation material, data management system for archiving the inventory, and with some examples, and also on how countries can design inventory improvement plan to facilitate improved reporting of enhanced transparency over time. And of course, we shall also have Mentimeter closing the session. So I would like to welcome participants that we have today. I can see we have new participants. Since we are few, I will give a few moments for introduction. I will ask participants from Tanzania to introduce themselves first, and then we shall do a round of introduction from my team. Thank you.
Okay, let me start. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. My name is Fikiri Mugenga. Once again, we are here for session 2. I'm working with Sokoine University of Agriculture for those who are new here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. So my name is Deo from the National Carbon Monitoring Center, dealing with the coordinating the GHG inventory in the country.
Thank you, Doctor.
Hello, guys. There is with me. My name is Christopher Obag, also from Tanzania, doing the GHG inventory in the country.
Thank you. Maybe Sarafina, you are next. But you are muted.
Okay. I'm Sarafina Masanja, also from National Carbon Monitoring Center, Tanzania.
Hello, my name is Dr. Nyari from Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology. I'm in the group of energy group.
Hello, my name is Engineer Cyril Kimario from Tanzania Bureau of Standards. I'm the group of Bureau.
All right. Yes, Deo, we can see you.
Yes, I am here.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes. Am I to start myself or someone else?
You are to introduce yourself.
Okay. I am Deogratia Sigambago. working with the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries in Tanzania. I'm currently the chairperson of the AFOLU group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Sheila, are you there? It seems like we have lost Sheila, colleagues. I think we can proceed from my side. I'm Ketiwe Kumalo. I think introduced myself last week. And I am working with UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center as a transparency advisor, and I'm very happy to be here with you. So, Francesco.
Yes, hello colleagues. I'm Francesco Locatelli, energy engineer, and I'm also part of the CB team in Copenhagen. Happy to be here working with you, and you will hear more from me also later on in the webinar.
Thank you, Francesco. Freya?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Freya Milford, and I also recently just joined the center in Copenhagen working in transparency on the CBIT project. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you all, and you'll also be hearing from me later in the webinar as well.
Thank you, Freya. Back to you, Sheila.
Yeah. Before Sheila, maybe there's another participant from Tanzania, Abbas Mzee from Zanzibar. Maybe he can introduce himself.
He just disappeared. Is there Abbas? Can we hear from you, Abbas?
I think his mic is muted.
You are muted. Can you open your microphone? Abbas, can you open your microphone? I'm not sure if he's hearing us.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we proceed, and then once he's ready, he can introduce himself.
Okay. So we have also one of our colleagues that just joined, Sekai. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Sekai Ngarize. I will be coming to see you next week as a consultant training you for the West sector and a follow sector. My background has been quite varied. I started in government, in the UK government, as the National LULUCF expert, land use and land use change and forestry. I also have worked with the IPCC during the refinement of the 2006 guidelines, what is famously known as the 2019 refinement, which is the revision of the 2006 guidelines, covering again mostly the follow sector and of course the other cross-cutting issues. So I've been capacity building since 2015 when I was in Japan, working jointly with the UNFCCC and the IPCC. So I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sekai. So colleagues, we are going to proceed. Sheila, are you still there? Can you still hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Apologies, I think there were some challenges with internet. I will just request that maybe if we are done, we can switch on our cameras and shortly and we take the photo and then we can continue with the program.
Okay. Can we open our cameras, colleagues? Abbas, can you adjust your camera? We are only seeing your head.
Dr. Nyari, we can't see you. We cannot see you. We want to take a picture.
Sarafina, can we see you?
Sorry, I think you see me now.
Yes, we see you now, but we don't see Shirima and Sarafina.
I don't know what's happening with my video. I can't. I'm trying as much as I can to join since last time, but I don't know what's happening. When I click it, it just showed dark color like that.
Oh, we'll go back here.
Sorry, you are missing again the picture this time.
Okay. Okay. I think now you can see us. Can you?
Not yet.
Yes, thank you. I have taken photos without Sarafina, and of course, Abasi was not on his chair, so we cannot also see him. Yeah, we shall continue.
Sarafina is joining quickly, so she can you can take the other photo if that's okay.
Yeah, we shall take another photo because
Sarafina, I think now she's here.
Okay, so let's take a photo. But Mr. Abasi, maybe you could adjust the camera so that we see you. Yeah, thank you. We have taken the photo. So next on the program, I can see we have new members. I will request that Ketsiwe, who is leading the team from the CBIT Global Support Program, provide some remarks so that the new members can benefit from what we do and how we have been engaging countries and how you can even further benefit from this capacity building support. So I'll hand over to Ketsiwe before we can go into the detailed program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. As it's already been mentioned, this is a continuation of the webinar we had last week. And from CBGSP, I think I would say that we work with countries in supporting them to prepare their climate report. So it's a national communication or biennial transparency report. We are here to support you. And the support that we have is demand driven. So we hear from the countries in terms of the type of support that they need. And we try by all means to offer this support in a very short period of time. As we have received a request from Tanzania in a couple of weeks, and we are already sending our experts to Tanzania to support you. Please do continue even after this training. If there are other elements that you think you still need support on, please do reach out to Sheila, and we will provide you the support that we need. So today we are getting into the details. Last week we looked at the new reporting requirements on greenhouse gas inventory coming from the modalities, procedures, and guidelines under the ETF. And we understood that a lot of elements that were not mandatory in the previous period under the convention are now mandatory. And we explore also together in terms of understanding how we can also use the embedded flexibility that have been provided by the MPGs, and also understand the key principle of improvement over time. So today we are going to get into details on the very key important management tools for GHG inventory. And these tools are very useful to support countries, especially now that we move into the enhanced transparency with its frequent reporting periods. So I would like you to have a really open mind in terms of engaging with the material that we are going to deliver today, because it will be very useful for you to start thinking about how you put in place some of these systems and tools that are going to be shared with you to ensure that it helps you going forward, that you are able to produce the inventory every 2 years now as it is under the ETF. So we thought that we start with this element to help you understand, and we hope that when Sekai is with you next week, she will just focus on the technical elements of the 2 sectors that she's expected to deliver the training on. And we would have at least ironed out some of the key important information. So we are also hoping that this is going to be a very participatory webinar. We also want to hear from you, because we also believe that you possess the most knowledge, because you understand the reality on the ground, especially in the case of Tanzania. And I think it's always useful to engage and have discussion in terms of how some of these tools and processes can be set up to the context of Tanzania. So we are also looking forward to hearing from you. We just want to encourage that this is not a one-way process, but it's always useful to have conversations around these issues so that we can best come up with the best possible solution for your national processes and support you where possible. So I have my colleague who is going to start with the presentation, Francesco, on the institutional arrangement. So over to you, Francesco.
All right, thank you, Katsiwa. We have already a raised hand, I think, before I start.
Yes,
go.
yes. Thank you very much, Katsiwa. This is just a question based on your previous presentation. I mean, there was an Annex 3 which is talking about key category analysis. Could you, or maybe somewhere in there, how do we set the key category analysis? How do we decide which one will be the key category analysis in the inventory? Can you shed some light on that? Or it's going to be covered maybe somewhere in the coming previous next speakers?
Yes, this is one of the key, very important elements, because this is now mandatory under the MPGs. And this is a very technical thing. So we have reserved this for the next week meeting because it is really technical, and it is useful that you do some exercise on it so that you can understand it very well. So Sekai will take you through that next week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Sekai.
Maybe just to quickly say that the presentations and the training material for next week, if it's possible, if it can be shared maybe today after the meeting, I have uploaded it on the Google Drive. So it will be helpful for those of you who are going to be participating in the training meeting next week to please just have a look at those presentations so that by the time we go through the training, you have some idea on what to do and what does key category analysis means. I'll be very grateful if we can transmit the training material files today to the participants. Thank you.
Francesco, please go ahead.
Okay. So I'll share my screen. Go in presentation mode. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So today I'm going to talk to you about institutional arrangements. Let's start right away. It's institutional arrangements. Wait, okay. Is basically the definition of roles and how the different roles should interact among each other to finally reach the goal of submitting BTR and delivering like the inventories. So this is not like is a process that you establish it in 1 week, just so you know, but it's a continuous process that is going to be refined over and over through the years and is going to improve in time, like the quality of your BTR, of your inventory, of your NDC tracking, and all what you need for delivering a good report. It's important, like here you can see in this graph on the right, that the different steps that are all connected in a circle. then starting from data collection and management to analysis, then to compilation reporting. Then you got to review, and when reviewing, you can understand how to improve each step of the mechanism, and so you can start again to deliver the next BTR with a higher resolution with a higher quality of data and analysis, with higher tiers and whatever you can improve year by year. I just want to make again a remark. Katsuo said it last week, but there is like a wording, just definition in the MPGs. When you find the word should, is like it's a recommendation. So you are invited. You are invited to do something, to try to achieve a goal. When instead you have a shall verb, that is a mandatory task, and you should really try. Obviously, there is flexibility, but that's like, okay, then you need to enter negotiations on that. And I mean, on normally you should follow the shall as a mandatory task. So getting to the content. So each party should implement and maintain national inventory arrangements, and arrangements can vary in each country. You will see later on in the presentation there are some examples from some other countries, but you will immediately see that each country has a different institutional arrangements, and so each country has to set up their own institutional arrangement, to set up their own roles, to define who is in charge of what tasks in the process. Each party shall report on the functions, so it's a mandatory task to report on the following functions related to the inventory planning, and the national entity or the national focal point with the overall responsibility. Then there is the inventory preparation process, so including the division of specific responsibilities and of institution that are participating in the preparation of the inventory. And then all information that are necessary to review, to have to guarantee quality. So for example, quality assurance and quality control. What are the disaggregated emission factors, the activity data, all the documentation about how the data were treated, and also in the end the planned inventory improvements. So how you plan to improve the work you've done in the coming years. So this is all that is required. So you will see institutional arrangement. So again, are all the policies, system, and processes that organizations use to legislate, plan, and manage their activities efficiently. So it's a very broad definition, but now we're getting to more detailed meaning of this, in the practical circumstances that we're working in. So we're talking about GHG inventories. So all the arrangements that support the updated and maintenance of the GHG inventories, reporting, elaboration, all these arrangements are part of our institutional arrangements. So what we want to achieve is a sustainable process for updating, quality, and continuous improvement, which is very important, continuous improvement of our work through the years, because this year we're trying to submit the first BTR, but this is going to be a recurring process that should be improved year by year, every 2 years, to deliver a better report and achieve better results in our climate goals. So institutional arrangements are set between many different players It can be obviously from government agencies and departments, but it can be structured at different levels. So national statistics, subnational statistics, subnational agencies, regional agencies, and then also including academia and research, very important, and private sector, especially when it comes to data collection, data management. It can be very important to include also private sector. So it's a very wide range of stakeholders that can be included in this, and that's why in each country is going to be different, and in each country it's important to set up a different, very country-specific institutional arrangement framework. Again, as I already said, there is no one-size-fits-all model. You will see also later, but it depends on the structure of the country, on the availability of resources, on the scales, on the experience in reporting, on the availability of data and the availability of expertise as well. So you will see, you can imagine it's going to be different for each country. So it's very important to, when starting with this work, to establish objectives of what we want to achieve with this work, with the inventory work, and also the objectives will help us identify what are the inputs and capacities that are required by each stakeholder, as well as role and responsibilities. Because when we establish also the objective, but also the timeline, when we want this objective to be reached, it's important. Then we can assess capacities. We can assess, like, okay, do we have the roles? Do we have the capabilities to reach this goal? And so, yeah, so it's important for the institutional arrangement to have like clear what are the goals and what are also the timelines. All right, well, it is suggested to include information in tabular format because, yeah, it's always better to report and also easier to report this. This is an example of a tabular format of the inventory objectives. So you can see on the left all the different objectives, the different reports that we want to achieve, and then the different gases, the categories, the geographical resolution. This is like a UK example, but it's very detailed, but it can give you like a good idea of what's like this, to have a table with different objectives, with different reports, and then the frequency of each one and the sectors of each sector. So yeah, this is like one good example of what you would like to have in mind when setting up like your institutional framework. This is an example. It's good to structure your institutional arrangements in a diagram, because it helps you and also who's reading the reports to understand who are the different stakeholders, the different roles, which are the different roles, how you define them, and who is interacting. What are the different interactions in between the different players, the different roles in this arrangement. So yeah, it's easy for the reader, and it should be included. So it should be included in the section of the report. So in this example, you can see you have the steering committee, the single national entity, and then the single national entity is like directly involved in talking with the management and the coordination of the GHG inventory. And then you have below that, you have the compilation, the sectoral experts, and then at the very bottom of this graph, you have the data providers. Each one is important, but it's also important that you define who is in charge of dealing with who, to avoid like double counting, to avoid confusing management of data. So it's important to achieve like this structure. This is another example. You have like New Zealand example. So you have, okay, and again, system can be very different. Like these institutional arrangements can be very different depending on the country. You can have a very centralized structure. You can have a very decentralized structure, or it depends. It can be a mixed one. You can internalize all the work, or you can also outsource some of the work to also some external consultants. And then you can have like multiple entities dealing with the different sectors, for example, or the different chapters of the BTR. This is one other example. This is from Ghana. You can see here the graph is a very detailed graph. Like in the very bottom, you have the data providers. They can be both private, but it can be also like international data sources, or public, so Ghana Statistical Service, you see. And then there is a data exchange to each team. There are 4 different teams that are being set up to work on 4 different sectors. We have energy, IPPU, AFOLU, and waste sector teams. Each team then is structured in sub-teams. So we have, for example, for the energy sector, we have lead we have the energy sector, we have mobile combustions, we have stationary combustions. And so like you can subdivide, substructure even the teams. Once each team has delivered their own inventory, you have like, you have like this team that is like circled in purple, and you have the uncertainty manager, the QA QC team. In this case, is the part of mathematics of the university, and then you have like documentation and archiving teams that you have like that in this case in the environmental data and information department of EPA. These 3 teams are working very closely with the inventory compiler. In this case is the climate change unit at EPA. And then the report finally, the inventory finally arrives to the inventory coordinator that is overseeing the whole process, and then goes to the national entity, which will in the end submit the BTR, the inventory in the BTR. So this is a good example of how you can structure your institutional arrangements in a country. There are many actors and stakeholders involved. You saw that, how many cells, how many subcells you can have in each team, in each department. In some countries, obviously, one organization can play more than one role, can be involved in many different processes, it can be involved in many different responsibilities. It depends on the capabilities of that organization, but also on the overall of all the stakeholders in the stakeholder pool. If there is someone else that can cover that role, otherwise someone else will need to step up. And one key thing is very important, that in all these institutional arrangements have to foresee like a long-term arrangements, and need to be thought as improving through time and function well. So each time, each BTR will face some difficulties, but each time we will try to improve and overcome those obstacles to achieve better results in the future. Each stakeholder involved, it could be useful to have some terms of reference to facilitate, to specify roles. So it could be useful to have some official terms of reference to define the different roles of the different stakeholders of the different in the different part of this framework. And then in the end, yes, it should be made clear that why work is the responsibility of individuals. It's the institutions that are responsible for the whole work to be carried out. So yes, it's important that also this is made very clear at the beginning of the process. It's also very important, very good to maintain a list of the stakeholders, of the responsibility and roles, as these could change through the years. These could, like, responsibilities could be adjusted, like new stakeholders could be involved, and it's important to have like an updated document keeping like track of all of this. And this is like, for example, a good example, like it's just a simple table, but it's going to be very useful in the future, where you can store the data of all the stakeholders and like what are the activities these organizations, these stakeholders are engaged, on which sectors, what are the roles and what are the duties of each one of the involved stakeholders. Okay, let's go take a quick look at the different stakeholders, the different entities that are gonna play an important role in this process. The national single entity is the leading organization, and it's the one with the responsibility of submitting the official inventory. It's often, but not necessarily, aligned with the same organization of the national focal point of the UNFCCC. And it can also usually is usually assumed by a ministry with a mandate on climate change. The national single entity is overseeing the whole activities, all of the activities, and is designating, basically is helping organizing the whole work, and in the end is gonna be the one like responsible for submitting the work. Well, sometimes the entity's role is delegated by a ministry to a climate change agency, but yeah, there is also this possibility. Depends on you and the organization of your own country. Then you have the steering committee or working group. This is a group that will participate in the process of approving the inventory developments and estimates. The group might consist of actors and stakeholders representing political decision maker and data providers, so it can be a mixed group, a group made of different stakeholders with different backgrounds and different roles, but like working together to reach like the best goal, to deliver the best quality inventory as possible. And then, yes, finally, the stakeholder group can also be convened to support the prioritization and the implementation on the enhancement of the inventory. But yes. And then you have the inventory coordinator. Again, this can vary. The stakeholder that takes, the institution that takes over this role can be very different from country to country. It could be ministries, it could be national institutes or agencies, private companies, universities, or even non-governmental organization. So yes, inventory coordinator is only if the entity is different. The description of this coordinator is only important if it's different from the national entity, from the unique national entity that I described earlier. Okay, Then you have the teams. You remember in the Ghana example, for example, in the institutional arrangement of Ghana, I show you the 4 boxes depicting the 4 teams, different working on different sectors. And so these teams are required, obviously, to understand the requirements for inventory quality, IPCC methods, inventory process, and national data sets. So they should be familiar with all the BTR work, with the inventories, but also with the maybe IPCC software methods to report this, having in mind already like what is the final goal, the final objective of this of the work. And then again, depending on national circumstances, sectoral technical teams could be in the same national entity or in other organizations, in universities or institute. Again, as I showed you also in the example from Ghana, it can involve like very different stakeholders. Last but not least, because we know that data are the backbone of all the work. Data providers are all those organizations that generate and provide data for the inventory. Can be multiple ones at the same time, can be multiple for different sectors, but also for the same sector. Sometimes it could be necessary to retrieve data from different providers. And it's very important to establish a good collaborations with these data providers, because if something happens and like the data delivery, the data providing arrangement doesn't work anymore, then the whole work that is above that gets stuck, and it's going to be impossible to provide an updated inventory. So it's important again also to have a clear in mind how the data will flow from the different in between different roles. So it's important. It can be very useful to have a diagram of the data flow from the initial data collection to the final report. It should be included and in the documents, also on the reporting. And then yes, it can be useful to also improve the transparency and build like a structured process for the country to facilitate the coming years' work. So this is an example of data flow diagram from South Africa, and you can see like the data flowing from left to right in between different agencies and different sectors. You have like the industry the industry providing data through the regulation, for example, to the national atmospheric emission inventory system, and then the data are going from here to the sector compilers. In this case are 2 different sector compilers, for example, the DEA and the university. They divided in the work, they split the work on different sectors. DEA, for example, is taking care of energy, IPPU, and waste, and the university on AFOLU. And then the data are flowing to the inventory manager and then to the DEA for the inventory approval. Again, you see, for example, that DEA, the Department of Environmental Affairs, is playing several roles in different phases of the process. So it's both a sector compiler, both an inventory manager, and both approving the inventory in the end. So this is again another structure, another diagram that gives you a good idea of how you can arrange your work. For data, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important to establish agreements because you want a continuous and secure data flow coming to your inventories, to the teams, to the sectorial teams. it can be useful that to establish a formal recognition. And there are many formats, depending also on your laws, on your country, but it's very useful, very important to have data provision agreements between the data providers and the whole working team of the GHG inventory. So, well, you've seen the key components of institutional arrangements are the organizational mandates, the expertise, the data flows, and then we have the system and tools and stakeholder engagements. All these elements are very important and play a crucial role in delivering, in the end, a good GHG inventory. The mandates are defining, again, roles and responsibilities, and that depends on laws, on organizational agreements, on data supply agreements, and then also defining the stakeholder groups. So again, repeating myself, but I think it's very important. In some countries, a single organization can play more than one role, and it's important to specify the role and responsibilities of each stakeholder and the timeline for carrying out their work. Then we have the experts. We want a team of national experts that are capable of regularly gathering and processing data, that have a suitable expertise and access to relevant training materials, and that progressively rely less on external consultants. So now we can externalize a little bit the work, but it's important that each country structure themselves to learn and be more and more independent in the whole process. Then we have data flows. So we have data sets and data providers. We need to define the data needs and what we use them for, and then manage the delivery of the required data sets on a regular basis. And then we can also continuously improve data quality and reduce uncertainty for our inventory. The tools are the MPGs, the trainings. We need to make work plans, and we need then the data management system to store and have the data managed consistently through the years and through the sectors, so we don't have issues like, for example, double counting or having data in wrong data for our inventories. And then, yeah, a QA/QC plan for quality. Last, it's the stakeholder engagements, consultations, GHG events and activities, website and data visualization, and communication to decision makers. These are all elements that can help you, that you have to keep in mind when you engage stakeholder in the process of the inventory. I thank you for your attention, and I don't know if there is any question or if we want to have a single question session after next presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Francisco. I would like to ask the participants from Tanzania if they have any questions about the presentation, or if they do not have, they can still keep the questions, and we have a joint session at the end. And just a few minutes. If we don't have, then I will invite Freya to deliver her presentation about the GHG inventory management process. Do you have any questions? Freya, the floor is yours. Thank you.
No problem. Let me just share my slides. 1 second. Oh, Katsue, you've got your hand up.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Tanzania. I don't know if anyone in the meeting can explain to us if they have this institutional arrangement for Tanzania, and if there are any challenges that they see in terms of data collection and how they are handling all this.
Yeah, thank you, Ketsiwe, for a very good question. I think if I can chip in on that, it's that yes, we do have an institutional arrangement. Currently, the National Carbon Monitoring Center is the inventory compiler, so it's the coordinating entity to compile the GHG. But there are some steering committee, and also they will submit to the national focal point, which is the vice president office, for external reporting. And in it, we have a technical working group for each sector, which is made up of a group of experts from the sector ministry, from the universities, from NGOs, from private sector, coming together in the collection and working on the data. So at the moment, we have a large group of the technical working group, but then we have a subgroup within the large group, which will deal with the day-to-day compilation and collection of information. And then later on, we engage the large group on a stakeholder consultation before we finalize the inventory. Yes, we have a lot of challenges. At the moment, we are mainly basing our information from the National Bureau of Statistics, which is the main source of the data that we have. We have collected some data from specific sectors, but still there's a lot that we're not able to get, especially from the private sector. And we are doing some works to try to engage them. And also in the municipals, and some of these data actually they are not available. It's not that they don't want to keep. Some of the data are collected for other purposes, but maybe they need to be worked out to fit to the inventory. And this is some of the works that we are doing. We don't have a regulation that mandate or guide the whole data process yet. So, but we think maybe these are areas of improvement that which will allow us to get the necessary data. So that's the overall situation that we are facing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you. I can see another hand, but before the hand comes, it is from Sekai. I have another, maybe it's more of a question asking for more clarification from your submission. So do you have like a data management system in place where you have it well organized, where, the data you collect at the moment? And also, do you have like the data collection tools that you usually send out? And is it like a regular data collection kind of procedure, or it comes during the time of reporting? Thank you. Then after you, I will ask Sekai to unmute herself.
Yes. So that's a good one. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank Francesco for his presentation and highlighting the issue of data. Part of what we are going to be looking at next week during the training is basically the cross-cutting issues from the IPCC 2006 guidelines. And there's a chapter 2 there in volume 1, which is basically looking at approaches to data collection. But it's very important, I think, to highlight the point raised by Francesco that you need to have a formalized system of data collection through either use of regulations that mandate data collection in a particular format. The reason why I made the intervention now is really to make sure that I have a question for the experts in the room from Tanzania on whether they have data for the two sectors that we are going to cover, because we don't have much time next week. So I would be very grateful if colleagues from Tanzania in the room can, in the meantime, try and see what data they have for the waste sector and what data they have for the Afolo sector. It doesn't matter if it's not in the format that's required for the inventory. Part of what we're going to be doing next week is to look at how we can adapt that data so that it can be used in the inventory through some of the training that we will do next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Sekai, and also previous speaker for the good questions and comments. So to start with the first one, yes, we have the Vice President Office, the Division of Environment is responsible for coordinating all the greenhouse gas inventory work. And the issue, we prepared a tool which we submitted the sector ministries for collecting the data that we collected. There are some challenges with these tools, and there are some challenges with the situation on the sector ministry. You can request this, but what you get is something different from what you requested. The reasons being that there was no formal that they're collecting the data that you expect them to collect. So they have their own way of collecting what they're collecting. So at least you bring that and then you try to make use of it based on what you want. And then the other thing is whether we have a MRV system or kind of a database system. Yes, we are in the process of developing. We do have we are setting up an integrated MRV system whereby we are going to we're in the process of integrating with the NDC implementation, but also the greenhouse gas and also most on the reference emission levels. So yes, we have, and it's in the process of being developed. It's not yet finalized, but it's at least we have somewhere to start. And then with the data, yes, this is really timely, and we are really grateful that we're going to get this training at the moment, because we have collected most of the data on the West and the Afulu. So we have some data already that when we're in the process of doing the inventory. So we do have data, and we'll be interested to see how that data look like and how we can adapt it to the IPCC guideline and to the reporting according to the soft as for the software. So yes, we have the data as just to confirm that to Sekai.
Thank you for that clarification. For the LULUCF part, just a quick clarification again. Do you already have a system for land representation? In other words, for example, if you have a geospatial unit that is collecting the land cover map that are then used to generate activity data for reporting land area and area change information, do you already have those land cover maps established or not? Because without those, we cannot have the data that we need to do the exercises, for example.
Yes, thank you so much. The full group is here, so for it's for a matter of making the participatory. Let me hear from the full group. I know we have maybe not all of them, but yes, some we have. Okay. But let's hear from the Afulu themselves. Maybe someone from Afulu can say something. Fikiri, do you want to say something on that?
Yes, I can say something, but I cannot confirm completely. Yes, we have or we don't have. At the moment, we are still working on it. Okay. I think before the next week, maybe I will take my time to coordinate with my colleague to find out what we have at the moment. But we're trying to organize the data as quite at it being.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you so much for making this session more interactive. So I'll hand over to Freya for the next session. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you everyone. So kind of as was mentioned, this presentation is going to build upon kind of some of the stuff that Francesco touched upon in his presentation before and stuff from last week as well. And it's really about providing information on the range of tools that can be utilized to manage the development of your greenhouse gas inventories. So as has been said kind of earlier, under the ETF and the MPGs, all parties are obviously now required to develop their NIs every 2 years, develop and report on their NIs every 2 years. And, while obviously certain flexibilities are in place based on, national circumstances, they are expected to be developed and improved upon. So the management tools that I'm going to discuss here will be really therefore essential in this national inventory reporting and will help to kind of enhance the quality and your ability to report on your emissions under these requirements and also other reporting areas under the Paris Agreement. So I'm going to go through a range of the tools that can be adopted and just kind of provide some examples as I go forward. Sorry, 1 second. So the IPCC's 2019 refinements to their guidelines added some new material on inventory management tools with the aims of these tools to further increase and aid in ensuring transparency and efficiency in compiling information required for greenhouse gas inventories. So kind of like I said, these tools are to enhance kind of the TAC principles, so transparency, accuracy, completeness, consistency, comparability of your inventories, and also help to ease time constraints and the time required in future greenhouse gas inventory development. And it also really does provide a kind of streamlined and efficient use of resources when these tools are used, which we know is also often a constraint that countries are facing when they're developing these. So kind of as was said, under the MPGs, and I think Francesco kind of said again about the certain wording, so the shall and the should. But under the MPGs, it's kind of stated that each party shall report on aspects of inventory planning, preparation and management. So that includes the archiving of information for reported time series, that's kind of disaggregated emission factors and activity data, documentation on generating and aggregating data, and information on quality assurance and quality control. So that's a shall requirement. There are obviously, as has been said, flexibility provisions, but the wording within the new MPGs is that this is a requirement. So that's kind of why these tools and things I'm going to discuss here in the slides throughout are really important. So there are a range of different inventory management tools that can be utilized that kind of can range from maybe more qualitative to quantitative, and then you've also got kind of elements of like what we're doing here today where it's educational approaches. But for the purpose of today's session, I'm just going to be focusing on the kind of tools in blue here. So we've got improvement plans, work plans, data management systems, and management of QA and QC. But one thing to note is obviously like these kind of the tools that are mentioned here, they aren't prescriptive and they aren't, the only tools out there that can be used. But kind of like I mentioned with the wording of the MPGs, these specific ones can be really helpful. So yeah, let me just move on. So the first tool I'm going to kind of discuss is work plans, which I'm sure you're all probably very familiar, not in the context of greenhouse gas reporting, but across probably other aspects of your work. But in the context of greenhouse gas inventory development, a work plan is just simply a defined schedule of steps which are set out in order to generate that the greenhouse gas inventory output. And having such a process or plan in place is going to particularly be of benefit to nations who are compiling their inventories on a regular basis, which obviously now under the ETF is every 2 years. So it's going to be providing, a clear plan of the task to be undertaken, the resources required, the personnel, the timeframes of these tasks, which all again further support kind of resource management. And also, as nations progress through their inventory development and in future reporting and in new inventory cycles, work plans are really essential, and it helps to kind of build upon that requirement of improving your inventories over time. Again, particularly for countries as well who have maybe in one inventory cycle adopted flexibility constraints. So with work plans, they obviously do take into account national circumstances, and there are certain flexibilities, availability constraints that you need to consider. Each country is probably going to have a different looking work plan, or maybe different level of detail, and also taking into account reporting years. If someone's reporting every year, that work plan may look slightly different to maybe someone reporting every 2 years or every 3 years, etc. So this is actually taken from the 2019 the IPCC guidelines, the updates. So this is kind of a pretty simple example of a work plan, but super effective. So for each of the activity to be undertaken in the inventory development, such as maybe that's developing the scope of work, or finalizing project team, selecting the kind of preferred methodology, data collection, data calculation, etc. For each of those different tasks, you'd have a corresponding timeline. So a date of when you want the task to be completed, or the task to be started, or a certain milestone is set within the plan. And then also, really importantly, is having that task assigned to the relative resource or personnel, and also additional stakeholders that might be useful for input into that task. So a work plan is just really providing the team with a really clear understanding of the work that is going to be undertaken, not only by themselves, but by other people who are involved in the inventory development. And so again, it's increasing the transparency and allowing as well that when we get to kind of talking about the inventory improvement, it really has everything there in one place that you can go back and look at. And so, yeah, this is just another example that we've taken here, which again shows really clearly the dates for all the tasks and deliverables that they wanted to be happening, and the responsible parties. And again, sort of as I mentioned, the complexity and the layout of these work plans are going to vary by each nation, and there's no strict format to follow. It's however each country wants to present this. Okay, so data management systems is the next tool I'm going to discuss. So the development of greenhouse gas inventories, as I'm sure you're all aware, requires vast amounts of data and information that are all being collated from different sources, and often that data is being collated in different formats and maybe from different applications, and that data is also being used for a variety of different functions, kind of as I've set out on the screen here. So you've got data that is going to come in the form of data sets or documents, and the function of that data can be used for calculating estimates or aggregating data, but then some of it's maybe going to be used in like public outreach, so it can really vary. So a data management system really provides a structure and format to how the information for the inventory is going to be compiled and combined, which again is just going to further increase and enhance those levels of transparency, consistency, and accuracy. And you might already be aware, but the IPCC actually has their own inventory software, and it's a really great data management tool, and it also has additional benefits of it's linked to the UNFCCC's reporting tool, and so there's lots of interpolarity between these two tools, and it makes the using the IPC software, you're able to generate from this software the CTR tables. So there's a really great crossover between these two tools. And one of the biggest benefits of the tools, I'd say, is you're storing all this past information from previous inventories, and it really provides a great base for information and outputs for each new inventory cycle. And this again is going to be particularly important as under the ETF, it's requiring for parties to report every 2 years now. So I think just on the next slide, I've actually got, some this is just a screenshot of the IPCCC tool, and I've got the link in there for you as well. So like I said, the tool allows for, the software, sorry, allows for the greenhouse gas emissions and removals to be estimated. And this is all in accordance with the 2006 best practice guidelines. So, and it's also, as I said, the official tool for the submission of data under the UNFCCC. So the inventories developed using this software will be able to be utilized under different kind of reports under the Paris Agreement. And it also building on what Francesco was talking about in terms of institutional arrangements, utilization of this software also really does build upon that, because it's promoting consistency with relevant guidelines, and it's also reducing data calculation and reporting error, and it's also reducing overall reporting burden. So let me just move on. So yeah, as we talk about data management systems, it's important to mention different levels of maturity with these systems, much like some of the other aspects that I've spoken about. So very much to reflect on national circumstances, countries may utilize a different data management system approaches. So maybe a more simpler approaches would be the utilization of spreadsheets and databases, that aren't going to further put constraints on a reporting nation. But more sophisticated approaches can also be selected. So maybe, where the technology capacity is there, and maybe, with reliable access to cloud services, and being able to have tools that are often, connected to the internet is also an approach that can be used. I won't stay too long on this slide, but obviously in addition to the maturity level of the data that you're looking at, the management systems, it's also really important just to take note of the different types of data, and sometimes different types of data may need different management systems to be used. When you're thinking about the type of software or systems or tools that can be used to manage data, like raw data for calculation or estimates, versus maybe more qualitative or reporting data, you are going to get slightly different tools and formats in relation to that as well. So this here is also pulled from the 2019 guidelines, and it does show a suggested standardized format for collating data for your greenhouse gas inventory. So as you can see here, the relevant headings are really providing a clear structure on how the data should be gathered and extracted from each of the reference that you would be using for your inventory. So you've got you've got the year that the data's from, the nomenclature, where the data's from, the value, the units, the reference. So it's allowing for data to be collated and gathered from a wide range of sources in a really clear way. And then obviously this data can then further be utilized in data calculation or data aggregation, and then eventually in reporting as well. And so this is actually, just this screenshot here is actually a screenshot of the data management system that Uruguay are using to show their greenhouse gas emissions and removals. So this is a very visual data management system, and it allows a variety of different emissions data to be presented, and it's accessible publicly and in a visual way. And it's an open source data catalog. So databases like this, which are visualized and open source, really allow as well for increased ease of the dissemination of information, which again is really important in the inventory development. So the data and the output from your inventories should really be accessible and understandable to the public, and it needs to be there for analysis and use by external actors after the data is published. But in building on this in this sense, it doesn't need to be an online platform like the one that we have here, which is linked. Infographics don't need to be a super sophisticated system. Information and dissemination of materials can be, printing and posting in public places, in schools and social areas, allowing for that public access of the information that has been generated. And and while a system like this in Uruguay, it works for them, each country is going to have a different type of data management system and a different way to visualize it. And it's most countries don't use the same kind of systems across the board. Okay, so the next section I'm just going to look at is in relation to quality assurance and quality control, which I know Francesco also slightly touched upon as well. So to provide some context and to ensure, in the context of the greenhouse gas reporting, QA and QC, quality assurance and quality control are very much just the two main aspects of quality management. So the quality of the data and quality of the results that your inventory presents. So quality assurance is a lot more the assessment of the standards and procedures that are used for a system, or in this case, that are used to develop the inventory, whereas the quality control is the actual methods utilized to ensure that it's conforming to the systems and to the relevant standards in place. So for greenhouse gas inventories, it's particularly it's vital. The nations are ensuring that the highest quality of data inventories are being produced to again kind of build upon what I mentioned at the start of the presentation, the kind of the transparency, accuracy, consistency, comparability. So within the IPCC's guidelines, the purpose of greenhouse gas inventory, for the purpose of greenhouse gas inventory development, QA, QC management is kind of made up of these different components, which I've shown on the screen. So you've got the QA, QC planning, you've got the log, you've got an inventory archive, you've got the inventory improvement plan, and then you've also got country-specific training materials. And in relation to the ETFs and the requirements into the MPGs, it's just to state again, it is a mandatory requirement for parties to elaborate and to produce a QA, QC plan in line with the IPCC guidelines, again, with relevant flexibility provisions in place. And yeah, also to have just general information on the QC procedures. So let's just move to... Yeah, so a QA QC plan really just involves the development of a plan and all the checks and review procedures and processes that will be utilized when developing an inventory in its upcoming development. So the plan shouldn't just be addressing standard aspects of quality assurance and quality control procedures, but also, especially for nations with developing capacities, the plan should be explicitly addressing how the inventory will be improved upon. And I'm going to touch a bit more on this later and kind of what activities will be used in order to do that. So the QA/QC plan needs to define all the areas and activities that will be used and completed by the inventory compilers, and ensure that the absolute minimum data quality objectives required under each relevant greenhouse gas inventory reporting area, that these obligations are met. And again, like this plan should include both general aspects of the inventory development and then more category specific objectives, procedures, and activities as well. So this is actually the IPCC's QC checklist, which is a really great starting point in QA/QC planning. And it's it's really detailed and provides really accurate, not accurate, really it provides just a really great starting point. But again, it's sort of important to say that this is just that this is a starting point, and each country needs to be making their QA/QC plan very specific to their own national circumstances. Often these checklists can be easily duplicated, but that's not really how they need to be used. When utilizing these checklists, and when they're being submitted, it needs to show how they're being used. It needs to highlight how and when the checks and the different checks throughout when they've been made, whether that's through having official sign off, having people's signatures, who has been kind of assessing the checks that have been in place. And so overall, the forms just need to be completed in a really robust manner. And here, so on the screen here, this is actually taken from Ghana's fifth greenhouse gas national inventory. And in the case of this report, Ghana actually they developed their own QA/QC manual as a part of their inventory and subsequent reports. So they had the relevant different tasks under the QC headings kind of set out, and a detail of these, and how they would be checked and what they would be done, and who would be the responsible entity for this. So it was really thorough, in line with their own national circumstances. And here this is a bit more of a complex, I guess, approach to a QA/QC plan. And this is by the EEA, and it's important to kind of note with this example, if you can see the QA activities and the QC checks that are part of this plan are actually embedded into the larger work plan, kind of as I discussed the work plans at the start of this this presentation. So they've managed to kind of integrate the two together to show within the larger work plan at place how the different QA and QC activities and QA/QC planning is being integrated. So this is a bit more of a sophisticated and complex approach that can be used as well. And similarly, this again is another kind of similar approach where you're combining a QA/QC plan with a larger work plan. So obviously in this case, this is showing how the data is flowing kind of from the start of the inventory development to the end, and it's showing the relevant different areas, just in orange here, of where certain checks need to be made. So building on that, so in order to obviously effectively manage any QA/QC and the documentation material related to that, it's really important for countries to continually keep a updated log of all the implemented and verified QA/QC activities that have been undertaken. And then in addition to that, to also keep a log, an archive, of all the historic and used data as a part of your inventory. And this again is kind of worded within the MPGs and the ETF. So for the log of implemented activities, it's basically, like I said, kind of keeping a record of all the activities undertaken with reference to relevant documents and associated findings. And then the archive keeps all the data, whether that's, calculations, reports, methodologies, references from, historic sources all the way to, present, like current day. And an inventory archive, it's really important that it's clear where and how that information is being stored. And so generally, for an inventory archive, kind of larger data management systems, which are slightly more sophisticated, can be particularly useful for this, to kind of have one area where everything could be accessed and sourced. But you can also utilize, simpler approaches such as, Excel, or a combination of the two. So really just by keeping, an up-to-date kind of log of the QA/QC activities that are being undertaken, and then, in addition to that, keeping an archive of all the information that is being used in your inventory development, it's again, and I know I've said it before, but it's building on that level of transparency that is needed especially as, you're reporting every 2 years, and, there's going to be a high level of compliance and additionally, you're also reducing, the risk of losing data or having to start your inventories from scratch, and which again just kind of reduces the overall time constraints for future reporting. So I've got some examples. So this is just a kind of a simple inventory archive that was within one of Germany's most recent national inventory reports. So this just here, they kind of just have everything setting out of how they're actually archiving their information and the specifications that that archive of information are adhering to, and then who's looking after it. But on the next slide, I actually have from the UK's government website. They actually have published on their national government website all their historic data relating to the NRIs and just like the greenhouse gas inventories from 1999 to present day. And you've got the reports, you've got all the calculations, you've got all the references, and it's a combination of having a system in place on a online accessible platform, but when you kind of go in and look into the different files, like they are Excel files, no worries, Sakai. There are Excel files, so it's a nice combination of the two. And then for implemented activities, this was taken from Ethiopia's one of their national reports, and it's a log of QC activities which have been implemented. So this is just a snapshot. It was a longer list, obviously, but this is just a snapshot of some of the activities that have taken place. And so they obviously have the activity name. They then have the procedures that were in place to allow it to be implemented, and again the responsible party. And then finally, we have just within the QA/QC section, we have inventory improvement plans, which I'm going to go into a bit more detail just on the following slides. And then you've also got country-specific training material as well, such as kind of what we're doing here today. So inventory improvement plan, this is going to be the kind of last bit that I talk about today. And as it does obviously sit like within the QA/QC section in the IPCC guidelines, but it's also a really important aspect in its own right. And it can be seen kind of as a separate tool that can be utilized by nations, in order to manage their inventory reporting. And kind of as I've said throughout this presentation, improvement plans are now, an essential aspect under the ETFs, and countries now need to show how they're improving their inventories in each reporting cycle. And this is obviously, again, particularly important for countries who maybe utilize flexibility provisions in a previous reporting cycle, because obviously as a part of flexibility provisions, countries have to state by when improvements on that particular capacity that they are lacking, when those improvements could be made, and how they can be implemented, and the reasoning behind this. And so an inventory improvement plan both provides kind of it's a really great tool to be able to manage subsequent and future inventories, but it also aligns to actual requirements under the ETFs as well. So yeah, as I said, they're vital parts of the next of the planning for your next stage inventory. And as I've mentioned, kind of continually, improvements to inventories and inventory management throughout this presentation. Through doing a plan, it really sets out the potential planned and implemented improvements to greenhouse gas inventories, and how those can be implemented over a period of time. So within these, you can be including actions such as, how you're going to improve data, how you're going to prioritize these actions, the synthesis of information, how these can be implemented, and the timeline by which they can be achieved. So, ensuring that, greenhouse gas inventories, that they are being improved is going to bring, benefits as you continue on your reporting. So you're going to get better quality and access to data. It's going to help really facilitate coordination, across the inventory development teams. And it's also just, it's going to support all the other aspects kind of that I've mentioned today. By improving upon your inventories, you're also therefore going to increase, quality assurance and quality check procedures in place. But again, as I've said, it is important to note that implementing improvements can have constraints based on national circumstances, just as kind of you see in the green box there. So that's also that something needs to be considered when developing your inventory improvement plan. So this is taken again from the IPCC guidelines, and this is an example of an inventory improvement plan, which could form a basis for ones utilised in any of your reporting. So this shows a potential structure just to the potential, the planned, and the implemented improvements to be undertaken. So in this specific example, it's split into 7 different sections. So you've got the category of improvement. You've then got its name, an overall description, where did it originate from, the status, so whether it's being undertaken, whether it's still in planning phase, etc. Its priority in this area particularly is really important, prioritizing the improvements that need to be made, because that also really does impact the timeline of how these improvements need to be adopted. And then of course you've got the owner, the owner of the improvement, so who will be responsible for ensuring that the improvement is implemented. So planning in this way just really does allow for full transparency across the inventory team, kind of as I've discussed previously, and allows for improvements to clearly be tracked, progressed, and understood by all. So this is a plan that was done by Ethiopia, and for like QA/QC goals and inventory improvement. So what's really interesting in the one that they've done here is they've set short, medium, and long-term objectives for the improvements to be implemented, and then in the actual categorization, as you kind of go across, they've also got the tasks, they've got the prioritization, the time frame, the resources that need to be used in order to implement it. They've then got who it was actioned by, any assumptions relating to it, and then the actual outcome itself. So it's a really detailed plan, and it's building upon what was in the guidelines, but they've made it specific to their national circumstances, and all within kind of under the goal of increasing their capability within their country and their reporting. I think there's maybe just one more. So yeah, this is just the last bit here. So this was another inventory improvement plan, which was taken from Nigeria's one of Nigeria's NI reports, and it's a lot simpler. It is just it's within the body of text of their report, but again, they're really setting out the different aspects that they want to be implemented, and it's within their report. So it means that when they go and do their next cycle of reporting, they have these measures to go against and to make sure that they are implementing within. And yeah, I've just provided here obviously kind of information sources and some further information. But I thank you all for your attention, and if there's any questions, or you want to discuss maybe any tools that you currently have in place, then now's the time for it. Thank you.
Questions or examples we have in Tanzania, so that you can get a very good country perspective as we plan for the in-person training. Priya likes questions, so kindly ask.
No
Any
questions means everything was clear, and either there was no need for this presentation, everything is known.
There is a question from Fikiri. Kindly unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, thank you for a very good presentation. Actually, my question is on QA and QC. From previous presentation, you mentioned that the QA and QC team, they should come from that team should not participate in GHG inventory activities. Should be separate group. They should not be a part of this inventory activities. But now my question is, in inventory improvement plan, or even in documentation of materials, we need, these activities look like responsible for the QA and QC team. So you guys, are going to provide separate training for this group of people? Because it seems like at the moment you're only dealing with the GHG inventory team, not QA and QC team. So are you going to provide a different training, particular for them? Thank you.
Freya, would you want to go first, or?
I might let Ketsue maybe take a question, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Fikiri. It is actually the QA team, not the QA/QC team. The QA team is the one that is not supposed to be involved because this is quality assurance. So quality assurance happens at the end of the process. However, the QC has to be done, can be done by even the data collectors, the people who are collecting the data. This can be, in some cases, the people who are compiling the inventory. And it's very important that you do quality control at the data collection stage, and also at the analysis stage, do some quality control in terms of understanding the default emission factors that are being used, and also the different formulas, if it is the right formula, and the units that are actually within the specific data, if there is a need to change some units, or if the units don't need to be changed. So these are the key activities at the quality control stage. And it doesn't matter whether the person has been involved in the inventory or not, but anyone can do quality control. What is important that we are saying it should be done by someone who has not done the compilation. This is the quality assurance, which is actually giving a third eye on the work that has been done to ensure that you have followed the guidelines, because we know that most cases is the same, that you have reviewers of the work that you have done, even at school, even anywhere where someone is reviewing your work. So quality assurance is about this review. And if there are teams that are actually responsible for review in Tanzania, and it's very important that these teams are trained and they understand the MPGs, they understand the IPCC guidelines. It cannot just be anyone. It has to be someone who has been trained, and preferably someone who has done an inventory before, because then you will understand a lot of the challenges that have, and you can easily spot some mistakes. And in most countries, they use these people that actually are already registered within the UNFCCC and are actually already performing reviews. And most countries, they use this team. But in some countries, they just use universities to be the one, select a team of 3 people, and they do the quality assurance. We also here at CBGSP offer quality assurance for your GHG inventory. If once you have compiled, you have the first draft and you want us to look at it, we offer this service to you based on your request. So we can do quality assurance of your inventory or of your whole BTR once you have compiled it. So this is the difference and the clarification that I can offer. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you very much. So you are ready to provide QA for free, right?
Yes, we do that for free. It's actually one of the reasons as to why the Global Support Program exists, to support countries to review, to do the peer review, the preview before they submit their BTRs. And also, it doesn't mean that you should have completed all the different chapters in the BTR. So if you finish the chapter on GHG inventory, you can share it with us and we do the review. Or if you finish the chapter on the NDC tracking, we can still do that peer review of the different chapters. So I will request that your team leader will submit in a request in time so that we can, because since it's a crunch time, we have lined up countries that are requesting for the same support. So it would be nice that we receive the request in time so that we know that Tanzania is in line of those countries that we need to support. Just to emphasize maybe about the quality control, usually it's within the different teams that work on the GHG inventory that quality control is provided. So usually it's usually a mechanism that is built within the different teams. The waste team, they have someone who usually checks to find out if the data that they are going to put in the inventory is what the country agrees with in terms of the units, in terms of the sources. So it's within the different teams, the sectors. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question before we go to our last session? Yes, kindly unmute and speak.
Yes, hello. This is Chris again from Tanzania. I have just a quick question on this IPCC tool, inventory software, the one we use for data management, and because currently we are trying to input some data in this tool, and because we have a number of years actually to do so, more than 10, but there is this time series data entry here, and they are protected. So you need to manually enter year after year to unprotect them. So kind of wondering if there's a way of unprotecting this, because once you export this and then you can very easily input all the data that you have and import it back again. But to do it manually is so time consuming. Is there any way to do that? Thank you.
Yes, I think it's you will handle that.
Thank you, Shirima. Which version of the software are you using?
It's the latest one. I've actually just downloaded it something like a week ago. I'm trying to look at the version right now. It's
3.2.93.
It
I
should
think.
be. Let me look at the application. Properties is 2.93.
Yes, I think this is you are right. This is the latest version of the software that you are using. And which sector are you working on?
IPPU.
Okay. Yes, this is one of the problematic sectors now in the IPCC software, the IPPU and some parts of AFOLU. Unfortunately, this is because some of the elements of the software are still under development. So they have completely changed the way the software was looking for the IPPU. So I think that is why you have to start afresh. And it's also in this sector that you are not able to open your old IPCC software, MDB, because they want you to start from the beginning to initialize the data. But for the specific problem that you might have, please engage with Sekai when she comes, because here I cannot solve the problem until I know where specifically in the software is the issue. but she will be there with you. Please let her know about this, and she will try to see what can be done on that. But if it is one of these problems that I'm mentioning that are linked to the new version of the IPCC software, then we have to engage our colleagues at the IPCC.
Thank you.
Yes, Paulo, kindly unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you very much. Mine is regarding the first installation of the IPCC software as a super user.
Mm-hmm.
We have managed to install the requirements, the Microsoft Visual, the database access, the Microsoft access. Now, can you guide us now? How can I set the super user and then allowing a number of different users of respective sectors to have an access from the database?
Okay, can I send you a file that gives you instruction on how to do that from the beginning? Will that be okay for you?
Which one out of the user manual?
No, I have one slide that I have all this information that can show you how to create the super user. And the super user, once you have created the super user, then you have to create the different users for the different sectors. That is your question,
Okay.
right?
Maybe, yeah.
You have this information, or
Thank
you
you very
have a
much. I'll be
specific problem?
No real. Actually, I've tried to follow the manual, but I see there are some gaps. Because after having all the environment, the Java runtime environment prepared, now see like how now to have the access from the server vis-a-vis the other users.
Do you have your software opened?
Here, let me.
Because also this is one of
something.
this is also one of the areas that you will get support on from Sekai, because she will be on the ground. Because I have to see the specific area that you are getting. If you are getting an area in the software, for me to be able to see how I can debug it.
Paulo, you can briefly share here, maybe if she can quickly help, then you can quickly share. The share is open.
Yeah, I've realized that I've installed the software because of the preparing the JavaScript and the Microsoft Visual. Then I have to install once again, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay, but don't worry. Next week, Madam Sekai will be with you, and I think she will also help you on some of those challenges. But in case you also have other specific questions, you need to ask. We are organizing a webinar on Ask Your Expert, and we shall be having colleagues from IPCC and the UNFCCC. So you might need to send some of those questions to me, or we shall be sending the link to the webinar. I hope the link will reach you, because usually we send through the focal points. But since maybe I have your contacts, I will also share with you the link to that webinar, so that you are able to ask some of those questions. But kindly, in case, just prepare those questions, and then they can also be attended to in time, and then they come with your answers during the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think this must be a very simple thing to solve. It's unfortunate that I'm not able to see what is exactly the problem, but what I can also advise is that make sure you download the right file because there are two files depending on your operating system. So make sure that you download the right file for your operation system.
Okay, thank you so much for that guidance, Ketsiwe. And in case, Paulo, you get challenges just before next week, our emails are open. I can link you up with Ketsiwe so she can support you on that. Yeah, thank you. So we are going to our last session just in case we do not have questions. And our last session is the webinar, is the Mentimeter. We would like to get your feedback about this session, and I'll be sharing the link as we close for the Menti so that we are able to have access. Just a minute. So the link, I can see it is already in sharing mode. So I hope you are able to see the instructions. So you go to your browser and you put www.menti.com. The code is 2864444543. We shall be glad to get your feedback about this webinar. It is very important for us to organize better future webinars. So when we get your feedback, it helps us to improve. And I would request that most of you have been able to attend should just give us feedback. So I'll be waiting for you to go to your browser and put .menti.com. I can put the code in the chat for easy access. The code is 28644543. So I'll be waiting for you to log on so I can go to the first question. Only one person has logged in. Thank you so much. So I would request that you log on. Our code is 28644543. How satisfied are you with this training? It's very important for us to know, to get your feedback, your genuine feedback, so that we can improve in future to serve you better. So only 2 people were around 10. It would be nice at least we get 8. I can see only 2. My kind request that is you log on www.menti.com. The code is 286445. I can see only 2 people. How relevant was this webinar for your work? Thank you. Yes, this is just a webinar and the hands-on will come next week. So practical orientation will come in the hands-on training. And that's why we do this, because we know that it is usually a short time and very difficult to cover all these areas in just 4 days. So we tend to put some webinars to build the momentum and provide information beforehand so that you can have read more, so that we spend less time on some elements that are not important, and then we can allocate time for hands-on training. And as you heard from Sekai, most of the training will concentrate on the IPCC. So data entry, all those issues and challenges you might have you will have someone in-house to support. So thank you so much for logging in. I can see now we are 5. And I can see how can we improve, include more practicals, face-to-face with practicals. Presentations were very educational and captures everything needed concerning GHG. Yes, all these presentations will be uploaded on the platform. I hope you are able to access the platform. I also uploaded the video for last week for the first webinar. I hope you were able to go through and see. Apologies about that. I think my internet just is unstable, but I can see feedback. And I'm so grateful that you are able to give these responses. They will help us to do better next time. And thank you so much for the compliments. So if we don't have any questions, any points of clarification, I will request that we close the webinar. We can unmute and say bye.
Thank you and bye.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Right.
And see
Thank
you
you,
next
everybody.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you next week. Yeah, bye.
See you next week.